Okay. Good evening, everyone. Please, can you confirm if you can hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, thank you so very much. Okay, hello, everyone, and welcome to this amazing webinar today, where we would have experienced speakers talk to us about the opportunities we could all harness while in medical school and how we can create a good CV or resume. I am Gloria Madu, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, so before we proceed, I would like every one of us to please take out 30 seconds to pray in our different religions. Okay, so moving ahead, permit me to please invite the FAMSAS SCOMA director in person of Abdul Hamed Babatunde for the opening remark. If you're here, sir, please can you kindly give us the opening remark? The floor is yours. Hello, sir. If you're around, please can you kindly take the opening remark? Please, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, yes, I was calling on the director for the opening remark. Okay, I think he's not available. Okay, permit me to please invite the project team chairman for an opening remark.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Assistantships. I think the chairperson is here with us now. Maybe you can
Okay.
help with it. If the chairperson is here with us, please if you can give us a brief opening remark before we begin. Abdulhamid, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, my microphone was off before.
Okay, you can
Good
proceed.
day, everyone. So my name is Abdulhamid. Today, I'm the chairperson for Kamsa Kuma. I welcome everyone here to this evening to this session. So the session is like a capacity building for medical students in Africa. So we realize that it's very important to understand the opportunities that await us, like while we are still in medical school and even after medical school. So we need to, it's better we prepare early once we have the information at hand. So that's why we're organizing a webinar whereby we talk about opportunities that are out there, like after graduation for graduate students. And also to get most of these opportunities, we'll have to have a good a good CV. So it's better to start building it as soon as possible. So that's why we are adding another section whereby we have a CV writing, which will be coming first. And then we'll be talking about the graduate opportunities that we can get with a proper application process. So I want to thank the facilitators that are here with us for accepting the invitation, and we would like to learn from you as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for this opening remark. We're glad to have you here. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on, permits me to please invite the first speaker for today's event. The first speaker is Progress Abola. He's a global health advocate and MBBS candidate at the Ladoke and Kintola University of Technology with over 5 years of experience working on social impact projects and initiatives across Nigeria, covering adolescent sexual reproductive health, HIV prevention research, youth development, and gender equality. Progress is a student ambassador at Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, United Kingdom, a student editor, International Journal of Medical Students, and youth advocate for Africa free of new HIV infections. Progress has co-authored articles published in international peer-reviewed journals, mentored research enthusiasts, and his abstract has been selected for presentations on national and international platforms. He was honored by CABE Awards as Student Researcher of the Year in Ladoka and Kintola University of Technology in 2020. Progress has been recognized as a Young African Hero by Today's Heroes magazine, 2017 Fellow of Barack Obama Young African Leaders Initiative Yali, International Federation of Medical Students Association, 2019 Delegates to World Health Assembly at Geneva, Switzerland, 2019 Fellow of the Young Professionals Bootcamp, Ikechi 2018 colleague, alumnus of Common Purpose UK, Youth Ambassador at International Youth Society, and Global Youth Ambassador at the Award United Nations. Progress was recently selected by BYM as one of the Africa's brightest young minds in 2021, whose bold ideas and actions are driving the continent forward. Please permit me to welcome Progress Abola. You're welcome, sir. If you're here, kindly take the floor.
Okay, thanks so much for the invite, and I'm quite glad to be here this evening. So if you can hear me, just say I can hear you in the chat box, or probably just say yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So without wasting our time, I'll just begin to what we have for today, so that we can have a simple session.
Moderator,
so please let's mute ourselves so that we can have the best from the session. So hope I'm able to share my screen. Okay, perfect. So hope we can all see my screen. Okay, I guess we can all see my screen. If you can't see my screen, you can probably talk so I can know. And at any point in time, if you can't see my screen, you can let me know so that I can adjust from my end So I'll be talking about CV writing. I'm sure a good number of us are quite conversant with a curriculum vitae, and we probably have at least like our CV that we are using to apply for applications, opportunities, and all of that. But for this evening, I will be going more in depth into how to craft a competitive, or what I call a winning CV that will get you opportunities both at the undergraduate and also at the graduate level. So basically, a CV is like an overview of someone's life work, like everything you've done that is kind of professional, academic formation, publications, and all of that. This aims to give like a complete record of someone's career, and it can be extensive depending on what you're applying for and the purpose of the CV. So this is an important tool that every young professional must have readily available. Is quite important. So if you don't have a CV yet and you're on this platform, this is an opportunity for you to learn the our ABC of CV writing, and then you can craft your own. Most of my sessions, we've had people that craft their CV like from scratch, and they're able to leverage on the tips shared to work on the competitive CV. So we are talking about CV like I've said earlier, a good number of us have our CV like readily available. So what is the purpose of you writing, of you having the CV? To inform the employer about your education, work experience, expertise, interest, and all of that. And also, most importantly, to set the quality and to persuade the employer for you to be invited for an interview. Let's move to ourselves so that we can have a smooth flow. For instance, now if you are working towards a job application, the essence of the CV and the accompanying cover letter is to get a slot for you for an interview process. So when they review your CV and they see that you have what they are looking for, you get to the next stage, which most times is the interview stage. So for your CV, it's all about selling your qualities and putting your best foot forward, to letting the employer, to letting the admission committee know that you are the best fit and then you are the ideal candidate for that particular position or for that particular job. So what would a good CV do for you? It will stand you out from the crowd. It will give you like a form of competitive advantage, because when you're able to sell yourself well, your accomplishment and everything is way outlined, it will make you stand out from the crowd. It draws attention to your relevant skills, experience, achievement, and even your potentials. It also creates an impression on the employer that they would want to select you for the next stage of the application process. So for CV format, we have three formats basically. We have the chronological format, the functional format, and then a blend of both, which we call the chrono-functional format. For the chronological CV, it's mostly used for corporate, like it's more of solid work, more of solid work history, and there are few or no gaps between jobs. So it's experience focused CV. I have in the file, it focuses on how experienced that you are. For the functional CV, it's more about the skill set or the expertise of an individual. So it's mainly used by individual with a lot of significant gaps in employment and a mixed employment background of people with short work history. But then what we use most often, like, you don't need to disturb yourself with like the format of the CV, like but then what we use most often, yeah, the notes will be available definitely after the session. But then what we use most often is the chrono-functional CV. That is a blend of both the work experience and then you applying your specific skills and talent that makes you the best fit for that particular opportunity. It's used by individuals freshly graduated from school and also with uninterrupted work history and applying for specific jobs. So let's go straight to the next part of my presentation, the sections of a CV. For this part, it actually depends. You can arrange your section of your CV depending on you, and then depending on what you are actually applying, what you're actually applying for. Often the first part will be the biodata that would show your name. Let's move to ourselves. That will show your name, email address, residential address, and phone number. So for this part, you just like these four major parties enough for your biodata or personal data section. Your name, your email address, your residential, and then your phone number. Don't need to add your date of birth. They are irrelevant details. Most often when I review CV, I see a lot of details that are not necessary or that are not relevant, like date of birth, state of origin, and all of that. They are not important when it comes to your CV. Nobody cares about your age, but then depending on what you are applying for, there are some jobs that they will specify that you need to be 25 years and above before you can apply. For such job opportunities, they might ask for your birth certificate or something. So you don't need to add it to your CV. They might ask for other documents to support to actually support that. So don't add irrelevant details to your CV. So just your name for the personal data or the data section, just your name, your email address, your residential address, and then your phone number. For the email address, you need to use a professional email, definitely. Not be using sexy damsel@gmail.com. That might not actually speak well of your candidacy. So keep it quite professional. So your personal statement or the brief bio, we also call it career summary or your career objective section. We have the work experience section. We have the education, honors and awards, certification or license, research experience, publications, presentations, and professional membership for part of your CV. You don't have any publications. There's no need adding the publication section to your CV. Just look at what you have and look for how you can actually maximize what you have to make it quite presentable. But then I know that a couple of us are actually undergraduates, so I would also try to make sure that my talking point covers for people that might not have so much of the experiences and all of that. So I think additional experience committee, personal development, community service or volunteering, foreign languages, interest hobbies. So for undergraduates, you might need to tweak this depending on our experience, what you want to use the CV for, specific positions or roles that you're actually applying for. So back then in 2018, my CV most often follow this format. So my personal data or my data section, personal statements or career summary or brief bio, the work experience. Now, what I do then was that I didn't actually have like relevant work experience. So then I made it volunteering and work experiences. So I kind of combine both together. You know, you can have work experience as a separate section, and then you have volunteering experiences as another section. But then if you don't have so much of work experiences or they're not that relevant, you can mix both together and make it volunteering and work experiences. And what I did then was also that I also combined relevant leadership experiences under volunteering and work experiences. You know, for the normal standard, we can have work experiences, volunteering experiences or community service, and then leadership positions held today. But as an undergraduate that you might not have so much of work experiences, you can just put it under volunteering and work experiences, in which you add key leadership positions under volunteering and work experiences. I think then I was vice president of my association, so I added it under work experience. I volunteer with a couple of NGOs then too. It was also under volunteering and work experiences. That's just a tweak for people that might not have relevant work experiences. Your education, trainings and certifications. Online trainings are also quite important too. Publications, awards and all skills references. For the skills part, my recent CV, for my skill part, I make it uh, for if you are like a medical inclined person, and it actually depends on what you are applying for too. If you're applying for for a clinical position, my skill section would be personal, in which you have the likes of leadership experience, teamwork, problem solving, organizational, and all of that. And then I have computer, computer as part of the skill section. Like you can add MS Word and PowerPoint presentation and all of that. So depending, you can also have clinical part too, which if you're a medical inclined person, you talk about clinical skills that you've acquired while while doing your clinical rotations. But then if you are someone that you are more of a technical person, you can have personal, which you have the normal soft skills and all of that, the computer, and then you can have technical skills too. So references, I will still go more in depth into the sections of the CV, and now we can make the best out of it. So we have the 5 C's for a good CV. It has to be clear, it has to be concise, like straight to the point. It has to be complete, consistency in terms of the font and the spacing and all of that. And also it has to be current. That is, you need to update your CV from time to time. Your CV of last 2 years is not the same as what you have now, unless if you are not growing as a person or if you are stagnant as a professional. So your CV needs to be updated like at every point that you have a new accomplishment or you have a new skill set or you've gained new experiences. You need to update your CV. So let's go more in depth into the sections of a CV. So for the personal statement or the brief bio, like we also say, is also known as the CV summary, and it forms the opening statement of your CV. So often it should not be more than 6 lines, and then you need to tailor it to what you're actually kind of applying for. So it has to show your personal characteristics and telling your prospective employer about the kind of person you are, your qualities, your experience. For instance, now, Progress Agbila is a global health advocate with over 4 years experience in this and this and that, and possess relevant track records in this and this and that. And then probably I can just have the last line. Looking forward to working in an organization uh, that offers career growth for employees or something. You can just come up with something quite catchy and all, but then you should showcase your experience, your qualities, and then most importantly, it should be relevant to the job that you are applying for. So your education section, like some of us know, it should start with the most current schooling. And then distinctions are most important. You have to get your school names correct. In case you have like theses, you can add them and all of that. So for the education section, if you are still in school, that is, you are still an undergraduate, you can also add it to it. But then you can also make it like probably like 2015 to like 2015 dash current, like you are still schooling, you get. So anybody going through your CV will know that you are still an undergraduate. And then you don't need to add like your primary school certificate or primary school details. It is not actually needed. If your highest qualification is your bachelor degree, or you are still on getting your bachelor degree, after your SSC, you are okay. There's no need to add trivial details like adding junior WAEC, probably like you went to different school for junior WAEC and then writing, and then adding primary school again. It is not relevant. But then if your highest qualification is probably MSc or PhD, you can actually limit your education section to probably your undergraduate degree program, your bachelor program. That is, you can just have like your PhD, MSc, and your bachelor degree, or you have your MSc and your bachelor degree. There's no need adding details that are not quite relevant. You have to you don't need to minor on the major and then a major on the minor. So you need to get it right. Same thing for honors and award section too. You start with the most recent. You start with the most recent, and also you add your dates, and then only academic or professional awards or honors count. Now, this is not the part that you will not be adding most beautiful. Who cares about if you are most beautiful or most handsome? They care more about your prospects, your potential, and your ability to deliver. Or adding most expensive, is not quite like leadership award. You can see that it will buttress more on your leadership skill and ability to manage and lead people to achieving a common goal. So you have to make sure that you add academic or professional awards. And then scholarships also count, either undergraduate, travel scholarship, all scholarships actually quite count. Now, one of the most important aspects of a CV is the work experience section. It's very, very, very important. Like this is where you have to sell your skills further, and then able to also this is where you're able to sell your skills like much better, and then how you show your accomplishment and what you have achieved so far in your current job listings. So it's not just about listing your duties like the regular way people just talk about the regular duties. You have to sell your skills. You have to showcase your accomplishments or your achievements. So dates, name of company, positions and skills. And then for the work experience part, I would advise us to make it month to date to month to date. For instance, now, I think that's like the standard way. For instance, now, 2015-02, that is February 2015 to 20. To 2019-04, that is the April. You can just make it 2016 to 2019. Then, how do you make your accomplishment stand out? There's a simple formula that then this formula is also used like when applying for applications. Accomplished, when it comes to you want to put like a metric, you want to showcase or you want to outline your achievement or your accomplishment. You can do that using like probably putting it in terms of percentage to show like the progress or the improvements, or to showcase your intervention and the impact that your intervention has actually made, or you put it in terms of numbers, numeric, to show the number of impacts, the number of people that your programs actually impacted, or in terms of money, like how much was generated, $10,000 and all of that. So you can represent your accomplishment or achievement in terms of percentage or in terms of numbers. So every one of your accomplishments should be presented as accomplished X as measured by Y by doing said. Now let's look at these two examples. A studied financial performance of companies and made investment recommendations. That's just like a normal job. This is the regular job description. I think that's perfect for it. Just a job description that you can even see on the company website for the role that they are actually looking for. Now let's look at the second one. Improved portfolio performance by 12%. That is $1.2 million over 1 year. Accomplished X. In this part will be improved portfolio performance measured by what? By 12% over 1 year. By doing what? By refining cost of capital calculations for information pro market and reviewing portfolio based on resulting valuations. So you can see if you are a recruiter, which of the job which of the job achievement, which one would entice you more, or which candidate would be interested in all these CV? So it will be the second one. Let's move to ourselves. So I think I lifted this from my CV then. NIMSA scorer, blah blah blah. Coordinated school activities in Lautech and recruited 20 passionate numbers. I was trying to demonstrate my achievement using numbers, where we educated about 300 young girls. So your CV has to showcase numbers, percentage, and trying to specifically show what you have accomplished as measured by what, and by doing what? By doing Z. So the start section too, you start with your most current and make sure that you indicate others that you work with in case it's like a collaboration, or indicate your co-authors for the and include grant funds if obtained. For the publication aspect, what I do is that to make it kind of for my own CV, what I do is that I just use Vancouver format. I just arrange the authorship and the journal and the title in Vancouver format. And then I then put in my name, like make my name like kind of be more pronounced amongst other authors since it is on my own CV. So you just burden your name. So you just burden your name and then use Vancouver format or any format at least you to make it quite presentable that way. And also if you have like penny publications, you can just put in brackets, work under it. If that is you submitted to a journal, then you are expecting a positive feedback, or they've actually responded, and then you need to tweak it for them to finally accept it. Now, if you have not been listening to me all through my presentation, you need to listen to this particular part. A CV is not one size fits all. Don't think when you have a particular CV, you can use it to apply to 10 openings or 10 applications. I'm very sure the response rate in terms of it being positive would be very low. You need to tailor each CV to what you're actually applying for. For instance, now for someone like me now, I have like up to like 8 versions of my CV. So if I'm applying for something research oriented, I have a particular CV to use. If I'm applying for something on leadership, blah blah blah, I have what to use. If I'm applying for something on global health, I have a CV to use. If I'm applying for something on CV content writing, I have what to use. If I'm applying for something on probably PR or social media management, I have a particular CV to use. So it is never one size fits all. It's not that I have one CV now, a CV that was kind of more tailored when you want to apply for a global health position, and then you now use it to apply for every other opening that you see. It doesn't work that way. You need to tweak and make some adjustments to it for you to have for the CV to be quite let me say, for it to be quite compelling to the recruiter. So please, you should have different versions of your CV. Another thing is that for the work experiences section, now, if you want to probably tweak your CV, the fact that you tweak most are the opening statements. For instance, now if you're applying for something quite different from your initial CV, you just go to the opening summary. Like I said earlier, the personal bio part, you just tweak it, you tweak the experience tailored. For instance, now, if you're applying for something leadership oriented let me use myself for an example now. If I'm applying for something leadership oriented, I'll go to my opening summary or my career objective part that I showed us earlier. I'll put my experiences like in leadership, like I have over 4 years experience in leadership positions or in managing students or something, you get. It will be different from if I'm applying for something on research oriented. And then another important part that you need to tweak is the work experiences part. For the work experiences part, like in your normal CV, the work experience should be like 3 to 5. Like max it should be 5. I'm talking in terms of how many work experience that you put under the work experiences part of your CV. Max 5. Most often I use 4 for my own CV. And uh, for someone like the SCOMA director now, I'm sure he has like 10 plus work experiences. So he obviously cannot put everything while you're applying for a particular application. So you bring your best foot forward. So if I'm applying for something on leadership, obviously I will probably use president of LATEC of that University Technical Student Association. I might do away with student ambassador of RSTMH in that particular work experience part. So you would tweak and input more of your leadership oriented experiences. So that's what they call tailored tailored made CV. So you need to craft it specifically to what you're actually applying for. So if I'm not applying for something on global health related, obviously I will need to add or bring student ambassador at Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. So you need to look at how you can maximize and get the best out of your experiences when you're applying for particular positions. And then most importantly, you need to tailor your CV specifically to what you're applying for. If you're actually doing that, the response rate in terms of positive would actually increase. So, and another thing that you do before you apply for is that you research about the company or you research about the application extensively. Okay. Another thing is that when you are applying for, okay, I would probably address that at the later at when I'm about to conclude the session. So but for now, you need to research about the company. Now, for instance, now if you're applying a particular company or a particular application, or you want to apply for a particular application, you need to go and read extensively about that particular company. You need to go and read extensively about that particular application. You need to know their mission statement, their core values. For instance, now, if it is an application now, you need to go and read about their past selected fellows, know what they are doing. If possible, you can reach out to 1 or 2 persons and try to get some form of insider information that might be relevant to your applications, making it more stronger. And if you're applying to a particular company, most companies have a good presence on LinkedIn. You can just search for the company on LinkedIn, and when you search on LinkedIn, you would see people working at that particular company. And another thing that LinkedIn does is that if you have any of your network in that particular company, it will let you know. And also, if you have any of your alumni, probably in terms of your education, it will also let you know. So you can reach out to them and it might help with 1 or 2 tips or probably share more information with you that can help you submit a competitive application. So you need to research about the company. You need to know what they are looking for. And then once you know what they are looking for, you now need to now tweak and channel your CV to make it uh like you are the missing part or you are the missing piece that they are actually looking for. So you need to perfect that particular. Most applications have what they are looking for when it comes to reviewing CVs, reviewing SOPs, reviewing motivation letter and all of that. So you need to make sure that you have this information at your fingertips and then you utilize it well. So let's check for other relevant tips. You need to use a standard font size. The common font size Times New Roman but of recent I use size depending on what you make your work quite famous. either paid or even in-pay positions. Consistent in your layout, list of skills, achievements, and then use positive action verbs: organized, delivered, accomplished, achieved, managed, led, and all of that. Be honest and positive. Proofread for spellings, position, grammar, and meaning. Don't obviously do not rush it. Do not lie. Like I said, there's only to add your headshot to it or marital status. Nobody cares if you are married or single. Your age, date of birth, that should not appear in the biodata section of your CV. Don't use flashy large fonts. There's only to write curriculum by tagging at top. Anybody going through it will do that. Obviously, this is a curriculum writing. And then another thing is that it is quite advisable that you send your CV in PDF format, because sometimes when you send in doc or Word format, it might get matched up and it might disrupt or affect the layout and all of that. So don't send your CV electronically with the file in my CV.pdf. You can, the standard way is writing your full name and then writing like Professor Agbola CV. You know that if you're applying to a particular company or a particular application or to a particular school or something, there will be a lot of CVs. So you properly adding a proper title to your CV would actually save them from stress while reviewing CVs. So there's no second way to write a CV. It is your document and can be structured and presented, but then it should be within a basic framework that will make it generally acceptable. So and then you need to know that the first impression is your CV, and then you need to make sure that you have something quite thorough to sell yourself the right way. So reference section of a CV, it might be named or named. If you have your referees ready, you can just write down their details and then put it in the reference section of your CV. But then if they are not readily available, you can just make it available upon request. Now I know this might be one of the likely questions that I might be asked after the session. Difference between a CV and resume. For a CV and resume, that actually depends. Most often they are used interchangeably, but then CV is actually quite more extensive. So the difference basically in summary is the length, what is included, and what each are actually used for. For a CV, it's actually quite more extensive because it contains a thorough information on your academic background, teaching experience, research experience, publications, presentations, and other achievement page resume. So CV is outline your skills, expertise, and then you submit. So this is just like reviewing what you said. So what we've said so far. So like a CV is a personal market and applicant and selection committees. Now, another thing that I would love to mention is the applicant tracking system. So this is quite important because I'm sure that you've been in settings when you hear that there are like 10,000 applications and the 10,000 applications requires you submitting a CV. So obviously you won't imagine that it would be like someone that would be the one that will be receiving like that will be reviewing thousands of applications. So what they use often is the applicant tracking system. It's like an automated software in which they will just input all the CVs at once, and then this applicant tracking system will now track and then screen some CVs out. So probably out of 10,000, the ATS, the applicant tracking system, can probably screen it down to like, let me say 1,000 plus. So that will make the reviewing quite less stressful. So how can you beat the applicant? And it selects CVs. You are working on your CV. You have to make sure that you make use of industry languages. And when we talk about keywords or industry languages, it is quite peculiar to different fields or different industries. For instance, now in the medical profession, we have keywords that are quite universal that should be in your CV. For someone in finance, they have their own keywords, or let me say they are universal languages that should actually be in their CV. So the ATS will just screen the CV based on the keywords. That is, if you have those keywords in your CV, it will make you eligible for the next stage of the application. So while working, you have to make sure that you incorporate some of the keywords into your CV. And then which sections of your CV can you incorporate the keywords? You can incorporate some in the skill section, and you can incorporate them also in the personal statements or career summary section, and also in the work experiences section. For instance, like if it's in the medical or clinical side now, there are particular keywords that if you are submitting a job to an hospital, that you must have these keywords in your CV. So you need to make sure that you also do like a research to know how to incorporate, to know which of the keywords and how to incorporate them into your CV, so that it can go through the ATS software. So before you start writing your CV, time is already going, so we need to round up now so that the next session can start as soon as possible. So another way to get keywords is to go through the job adverts. For instance, now if they say there's a job advert and there's a vacancy for an accountant with proven record of accomplishment in sales, experience in IT, ability to maximize existing and new accounts, self-confidence, and good my relationship. So intentionally, if I'm working on this kind of an application now, intentionally I will put good my relationship in the skill section, and then while I am actually working in the work experience section, or probably, for instance, in the personal statement or the career summary section, I will try to incorporate proven record of accomplishment in sales while talking about the candidate in the opening summary of the CV. For instance, now, Babatunde Jayola is a dedicated professional with proven record and accomplishment in sales, and probably has some few other words to it, just to incorporate this particular key sentence or keyword or key phrase into that particular CV. And also experience in IT, that means you also need to demonstrate that the candidate has some background in IT, probably in the skill section, and probably while talking about the work experience, you can talk about some of the simple IT tools that was used to work as an accountant. So you just need to incorporate some of these few keywords so that your application can fly through or go through the applicant tracking system. So component of the CV, like I said about data, straight to the point. Personal profile, also we have it here. So this is also like a sample that we can also use at our convenience. So education section, award section, and then formatting your CV, the font size, proofreading, consistency, tailoring keywords and ATA. It is perfectly acceptable to keep a generic copy of your CV for your own records. But if you are applying for a job, like I said, it must be tailored to the role. Not only with this show employer why you are a match, it will also help your application beat the applicant tracking system too. So I think that's all. So I can entertain one or two questions before I take my leave. Hello, if you have questions, you can probably type or you unmute yourself and ask. Hello, questions. If you have questions, type or you
Good
unmute
evening.
yourself and ask a question. Okay.
Good evening.
I'm
Please, I have a
listening.
question. On that educational section, what do you mean by list thesis titles? Please, thank you.
Okay, for thesis, if probably like masters now, your research publication for your master, like MSc thesis or PhD thesis, you can add it to the education section. For instance, now, probably you did your MSc in Harvard. You talk about MSc public health, and then you put like a bullet point to talk about to just write the title of your PhD or probably your MSc thesis in that particular aspect. Hope I'm able to answer your question.
And that question, please, what's the difference between a resume and a CV? Like, I think they are both used interchangeably, but what is actually the difference, please?
Yeah, if you actually follow my section like closely, I spoke about the differences, and like I said, and like you also said, it can be used interchangeably. But then the difference is in terms of the length and the what you include and what it is actually used for. So there are basically three differences. So for CVs, they're actually more extensive as it covers your full academic background, teaching experience, research experience. So it's actually quite more in depth. And then they often use it for academic positions, fellowships, and all of that. Why for resume? Most often, resume is max of 2 pages, or let me say a page, like a page resume or 2 pages resume. So it's basically the length, what you include, and then what you want to use the CV or the resume for. So the next question. Okay, sorry, there's a question in the chat box. Thanks for the presentation. Please, I'm not clear on the percentage scoring of CV. Can this person unmute him or herself and ask, like, so that I can understand what the person meant? Because the question is not actually clear to me. So any other question?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, I have a question about the layout of the CV. Is there a particular layout? Like when you were talking about the difference between a resume and a CV, now you talked about the length, but usually, like my CV, for example, is just like a page. So are you saying that because it's just a page, it doesn't really qualify as a CV or what? And then how is the layout supposed to be? Is it supposed to be like when you look at Canva CV designs, like their templates, you have this kind of layout where there's a kind of division. The right side, you put in the bio and awards, this and that, and then on the right side, you could put in your name and like those templates. Like, is there a particular layout that you should follow, or like those templates so are okay?
Okay, thank you. For your first question, talking about luminance and CV, like I said, it can both be used interchangeably. So if it's even like, and depending on what I'm applying for too. So, and also it also depends on the recruiter, or let me say the person in charge of the application. They can say submit your resume or probably submit your CV. So you can use both interchangeably. But then when you want to be more in depth about the differences, like I said earlier, is in terms of the length, what you include and what you want to probably use it for. For a CV, is often more extensive. It's more extensive in terms of going more in depth about your experiences and talking about your research experiences, teaching experiences, and all of that. But then it can be used interchangeably to a reasonable extent. So about your second question on layout, for layout, there is no particular or specific layout for you to use in terms of working on your CV. Any layout that is quite presentable, that is clear, and that is and that let me just say a layout that is quite clear, that is consistent and presentable is good to go. Depending on what you want to use, it's actually good to go. You can make use of Canvas, you can make use of Microsoft Word to start or to build your CV from scratch. And then you can also make use of online building CV tools to also use like fancy layouts or templates to work on your CV. So most importantly, you just need to be presentable, clear, and then any layout that you are using, you have to be consistent with the layout. Okay, the question has been restructured. Okay, what you gave a formula for CV XYZ, and I did not get it. The essence of the XYZ that I spoke about during the work experience section is just for you to outline your accomplishment in terms of numbers or percentage. So the XYZ is you accomplished X. That is, you did what? You accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. So the essence is just for you to outline your accomplishments in terms of like something, in terms of metrics that is quantifiable. So that was why I said in terms of number or percentage. If you went for an outreach, you can talk about the number of students that was impacted, or probably if you did like a pre-survey or post-survey, you can talk about you can talk about the impact in terms of knowledge, in terms of knowledge gained probably by the participants, from 30% knowledge about the use of female condoms to probably like 80% knowledge. So that's like a way to represent knowledge in terms of like probably an outreach that you actually went for. Or if you're also working in a corporate settings, you can talk in terms of profits made while you working, probably in terms of revenue generated, like 12% or $10 million or what have you. So the essence is basically to quantify your accomplishments or your achievements. Any other question?
All right. Thank you very much, Progress. I think those are all the questions that have been asked so far in the chat group. And also, we're already getting a bit short of time, and we would have to be moving on to our next session now. We're really grateful for all the information that you've shared and all the tips and guidelines that you've shared on writing CVs and resumes. We're really grateful. And yes, I can see messages in the group chats. We'll make the slides available to all the members that have been present here. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening carefully as Progress gave us all that information. Thank you very much, Progress, for all you shared. And without further ado, we'll be moving on to the second and final session of today's program. And this session is where you'll be applying your CV writing skills. And it is a very important session, especially for all the medical students that are present here today, because this will be discussing graduate school opportunities post-MBBS. Without further ado, I'll introduce our speaker for the second session, which is none other than Remark. Remark is a graduate school mentor. She is the Vice President Academics Student Council, a fourth-year PhD chemistry candidate, a digital content creator, and a data science fellow. She has provided all-round graduate school mentorship service, and her goal is to land individuals into multiple fully funded offers. Yes, you heard me correctly, fully funded offers into graduate school opportunities. If you're ready to do the work, she's always ready to guide you and show you how to get into these positions and into these graduate school opportunities. You can easily get fully funded offers from graduate schools in the United States. She offers so many services and helps in putting so many people in some of these prestigious positions. Rahimat, I think the floor is yours now. If you can hear me, please go ahead and unmute yourself. You can begin.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I would like to share my screen, please.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. I think someone is currently sharing. Okay, now I can. So hi everyone, my name is Rahima Rafiu. I'm a graduate school mentor at the Graduate School Hub, and today I'll be talking to you about how to secure fully funded international scholarships for medical students. So first, usually for medicine, it's not like people go study like a master's in medicine or a PhD in medicine. At that point, when you're talking about getting an advanced degree, you want to specialize in something, and there are so many options available for medical students. But the truth is, having the knowledge to know, yes, you need to evaluate what exactly you want. Some people like anatomy in medical school, some people hate biochemistry. So you really need to evaluate yourself and know that, okay, if I would be getting a master's degree for 2 years or getting a PhD for 5 years, I really want to major in something I'm interested in. So there are so many courses available for medical doctors, but what would decide exactly what course you would go for depends heavily on, number one, your interest, and also the availability of funding in those areas, because sometimes people want to study courses, but there's actually no available funding for that. And tuition in the United States, for instance, it's not, when you convert that to Naira, we're talking about tens of millions of Naira. And for me, I am for free education. I am for you studying without having to break the bank, without taking a loan, because some of these loans have like ridiculously high interest. And I always tell people, you can study for free all over the world. And if you can study for free, why would you want to, pay the money you do not have to, enroll in these programs? So one of those programs where medical doctors can, that they do study, many medical doctors I've worked with, usually they go for biomedical sciences or public health. And public health, there are so many diverse research opportunities in public health, health policy, epidemiology, community health, so many very vast areas under public health. But the truth is, public health is a very hot area. Everybody wants to get into public health, even people who study economics, people who study statistics, especially because of COVID and the pandemic. So many people are kind of like open to this course. And in the United States, for instance, courses like nursing, medicine, public health, they just believe that if you graduate, you're going to get a very good job. So they are very sometimes stingy with giving funding. This is not to say that there are no funding opportunities if maybe you finish your medical degree and you're going for an MPH, for instance. There is funding, but it is very competitive, and depending on your profile and everything you've worked with, that's what would make you competitive. So for instance, if you're interested in public health, you need to be able to show, for instance, what you've done in your community, if you've participated in, outreaches and all of these things. This is also like what the first speaker talked about, like crafting your resume appropriately. If you're crafting your resume for a public health program, you need to show that you've done so many things. It could be like you're a volunteer, nobody cares whether it's like an actual paid work experience or it's a volunteer experience. As long as you can show that, or you have passion for this field and you've been doing it in the little way that you can. Another field is biomedical biological sciences. One thing I realize is for people, there are so many professors who usually what they do is probably if somebody has a PhD in biomedical science, the majority of the work you do, when you do all the hard work in the lab, eventually we talk about clinical trials where you're testing some of these drugs in patients and all of this. So there's a very important clinical aspect of this research. But if you are interested in biomedical science as a medical student, whether you're still in school, you've graduated, one thing I would really advise is try to get an internship. It does not have to be paid. You just need to have that lab experience. And as someone who works like live patients, with people who are alive, mixing things in the test tube would not be like the most difficult thing in the world. But the thing is, sometimes people are evaluating your profile as a medical student and they're thinking, this person have not really worked in the lab, because working with the live patient, we would say like is more complicated and more complex, but there are so many subtle lab and research skills that you can acquire by working in a lab. So if you know that you're interested in biomedical science, and this is really broad, like very broad, people work on cancer, people work on women health, where they are dealing with research about curing endometriosis for women, psychology, like this is very, very vast, but usually the, let me say, the instrumentations you would be using are these instrumentation usually cuts across different areas. So whether somebody is working in cancer and the other person is working with no cells, they are usually very similar. But like I said before, what I would recommend is try to have like at least, it could be like even 1 month research experience in the lab. It could be like a volunteer lab. If you are still in school at the moment, if there is any of your professors who is doing like research, you could just say, I would like to volunteer in your lab for 1 month. You just need something to show that, excuse me, as much as you can work with like patients, you also have this research skills that could be valued in graduate school. And that course is pathology and anatomical sciences, molecular microbiology and immunology. And even though I'm just stating these topics like this, in a single school, 10 professors can be working on molecular microbiology and immunology, and their research would be entirely different from each other. There are so many research opportunities, so many research topics. So even though this is broad, there are so many like very, very specific units you can specialize in. And medical pharmacology and physiology, genetics and precision medicine, this is a very hot area now. Integrative medicine is another one, forensic sciences, if anyone is interested in, depending on like what you're interested in. Forensic science, it could be like you're working in the lab, maybe a crime has happened and you're trying to diagnose, okay, what happened at this location, we're talking like fingerprints and all of these things. So there are this is also very broad. Forensic sciences is very broad, but there are a lot of research areas and there are a lot of research interests under these broad topics. Biomedical informatics too, for people who are interested in coding and tech. Biomedical informatics is also a good area. In this, you don't have to be in the lab. Thank God there's a lot of conversations about remote work now. So if you are interested in tech, you're interested in Python and all of these things, coding, you can major in biomedical informatics. You don't have to step into the lab. Everything you're doing is online. It's on your computer using very complex and advanced computer software. So types of graduate school scholarships, people are always surprised when they say, okay, you can study in graduate school. Aside from the fact that your tuition is paid, you also get a salary. And it feels like how is this possible that you're studying and somebody is paying you to study? So the first is external funding. There's so many funding opportunities that your country or maybe an organization, especially for underrepresented people from Africa, the organizations that would say that we want to award maybe 10 students from each country scholarship for them to study, to have their master's in any part of the world. And so this external funding comes in different, there are various external funding. When we say external funding, it just means that it's not coming directly from the school. This is funding that is external to like the school you want to study in. So the only thing about external funding is, for instance, if a funding is awarded for 10 students per country, and let me say, of Nigeria now, you're trying to.
Was kind of overeating.
Ade, could you please mute your mic?
I gained something, but I would have.
So external funding just means it is external to the university you're trying to study in. But the concern is now it's very competitive. For instance, if they are awarding 20 students in Nigeria, this funding to study masters all over the world, you're competing with tens of thousands of people, maybe thousands of people. So it is also, but if you apply to as many as possible, it's also a game of numbers. If you apply to as many funding as possible and you craft your resume well, your profile stands out, there's a probability that at least one will work out. But in America, there's something we call teaching assistantships. And like the word implies, it's just you hire a master's student because you've gone through a bachelor's degree. You can transfer that knowledge to students who are in college year, which means that they are just starting their university. So it's not like you will be the primary instructor and there would be no professor assigned. So there would be a professor assigned for the class, but you're just a teaching assistant. You can help with grading, help with disseminating information to students when students have questions about the classes, when they have questions about submission and all of those things, they turn to you. If it's a lab class, if they have any questions during the laboratory or they're trying to do an experiment and they're going through stuff, you're there to help them. So it's not like you're literally the primary teacher. You are assisting a professor. So usually I've been a teaching assistant for almost 8 semesters now. And I've always worked in a lab where I guide students. If they have, I grade their coursework, their laboratory notes. If they have questions about whatever they are doing in the lab, essentially my goal is to make sure that they don't do nonsense in the lab, because sometimes these courses are very new to them. So my goal is to ensure that I'm giving them the right information. And in turn, for working as a teaching assistant, the university pays my tuition and they pay me a salary. So that means I don't have to worry about paying any school fees. My school fees is paid every semester and I get my salary every month. So that's how teaching assistantships work. For research assistantships and for teaching assistantships too, whatever, you would still do research. So usually in America, we're talking about funding, we're talking about either master's with a thesis or PhD with a thesis, which means you would do a research and write a dissertation at the end of your program. So even as a teaching assistant, you're getting your tuition paid by the university, or let me say the department is paying you to teach the student, and you also get a stipend. However, you would still carry on research that you would need to write your dissertation so that you would complete the program. For research assistantship, it's quite different. You do not need to teach. It's just a company could be trying to solve a problem, or they are trying to investigate maybe someone wants to investigate why endometriosis is rampant in women from a particular state in the United States, and then they are collecting cell samples and all of these things. A hospital or a company, a pharmaceutical company or something can reach out to a professor and say, oh, we see that you have expertise in this area. Would you be able to solve this research problem for us? And then the professor in turn then hires graduate research assistants. That's why you see, I would say advertisements here and there. I'm looking for 2 PhD students to work on an interesting project in the summer, something like that. So somebody funds the professor funds you. So it's kind of like an interdependent cycle. And for this, you do not need to worry about teaching. Whatever research you do, as you're trying to solve the company's problem, this is the same research that you would use to complete your dissertation. And people always ask which is better, teaching assistantship or research assistantship. It actually depends. For research assistantship, for people who do not like teaching and they just prefer to do research and that's it, that's fine for them. But another thing is, the professor is paying you and the professor is getting paid from a grant. So if the grant finishes, it is not unusual for people to switch between teaching and research, because if the research grant expires, for instance, and you're not done with your degree and the professor doesn't have another research grant, that could be a problem where you have to either switch to teaching assistantship, or it's just very dependent on that particular research. Whereas for teaching assistantship, it's kind of certain that, okay, students will always come in every semester enrolling in the course, so you would not really have to worry about funding. But like I said, it's not unusual for people to switch between teaching assistantship and research assistantship. And the last one is the fellowship, very similar to external funding too, where you have companies, industries, not-for-profit organizations saying, oh, we are looking for, just write an essay about Africa or something, or how your research is valuable in a particular part of Africa. These are just like fellowships. It could also be like in a university where it's like dean fellowships for people with 4.0 out of 4.0 CGPAs, fellowships for underrepresented women and all of that. So these are also external to what you would call like the traditional scholarships, but sometimes they're in like monetary funds for people who like do like very coding related research. Facebook, Google, they have different fellowships where they just give you one-time payment of maybe say $10,000 or $5,000. Just write an essay, let us see what you can do. It could be anything. So these are more like one-time payment, and not like the traditional, we'll pay your tuition, I'll pay your salary. So that's how I always tell people, no matter the amount of scholarships the school is giving you, if it's not paying your tuition and it's not paying your salary, it's still not fully funded. So full funding means that the tuition is paid and you get a salary, which means that you would not struggle, because people hear different things and they say, oh, you work, you can work at a restaurant or something. No, it's not. There's no number of hours that you can work in the United States that will be enough for you to pay your tuition. We're talking about $50,000 per semester. In some schools that are high-end, tuition is like $60,000 per semester, $6,000 sometimes per year. I don't know how many burgers you want to sell or how many restaurants like hours you want to work. So yes, people do sometimes do like this work in the library, this kind of small jobs on campus, but that's literally just extra money if you want it. But usually when people have full funding and your tuition is paid, you don't want to keep struggling and using all the time you're supposed to use to rest just because you want to earn some money. But if you want extra fund, you can decide to do this and say you work, but that money would not be enough for you to pay your tuition, or it would not for you to just rely on that throughout your program. So next is major requirements, and I would really want you to listen very well. This is like, I would say like the most important slide. This is where you would know everything you would need to submit a successful application. Even though most people I work with, about the hundreds of people, most people I work with, we usually focus on the United States and Canada because funding is vast. There are so many countries. I also encourage, I've had mentees who have gone to Germany, gone to Greece, gone to Sweden. There are so many scholarships outside the United States and Canada. But when we talk about funding, the United States comes first. They are very, 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 very generous with funding. So this is in particular to the United States and Canada too. Very similar requirements, but if you're considering applying to different countries, every scholarship would have, or every university would have their own requirements. But this is like, I would say the United States probably has like the broadest requirement. It's not the easiest to enter. You need to do a lot of work, but when you talk about the return on investment, it is huge. So first is transcript evaluation by what we call NASES, National Association of Credential Evaluation Services, approved organization. So there's so many credential evaluation out there. Some of them are not valid, in all honesty. Some of them, if you say you use them, nobody's gonna look at you because they are not approved. So the most common one I recommend, and is very, people know, many schools are aware of, is WES evaluation, and that stands for World Educational Services. So because you have a medical degree, many schools do not have a CGPA system, which when I talk to many of my mentees, like I really do wish they do something about that, because when you're in medical school, you don't know it's actually a disadvantage to you when it's just, oh, get 60 and you've passed, or get 70 and you've passed, and everything is just pass. And the person who got a 60 and the person who got a 90, both of them feel, look, like I passed and that's it. When you're trying to apply into graduate school, that's when you would know that 90 and 60s are not actually the same. And unfortunately, I've seen people who, yes, they finished medical school, they graduated, they have their papers. Eventually, when they do transcript evaluation, if everything is just 52, 53, and all of this small maths, the CGPA would not come out great. And depending, it's just, it's a very competitive game now. Everybody wants to travel out. Everybody wants to go to graduate school. And if your transcript or the CGPA on your transcript is not showing that you're qualified, it's not like it's impossible. I've worked with people with very, very low CGPAs. It's not impossible. But I would really, what people do not understand and what universities do not understand is, if you just say, oh, 60 is passed, 90 is passed, of course, if I can get a 60 and pass, why would I want to hustle for a 90? But unfortunately, when you're trying to apply to institutions outside the country, both scores are not the same. So the first thing you need to do in your step of getting a graduate degree outside Nigeria, outside your country, is WES evaluation. So that takes whatever, course, usually most in medical schools, from your first 100 level and 200, You could have like courses where you have A's and B's and all of that. But then when you start getting into your faculty, really, or your College of Health Sciences, whatever, there's no A or B, it's just pass or fail. But then what this West evaluation would do is evaluate. If you had a 60 something somewhere, they would evaluate that as a C. If you have a 90 something somewhere, they will evaluate that. But the great thing about West evaluation is if you have failed any course and you retook it, unlike in school where, for instance, if you were in a CGPA system, the class you failed would still be used in calculating your CGPA. But for West evaluation, once you've retaken that class, it would not be considered as part of your degree. So for instance, if you did it once and you had an F, and then you redo it and you have an A, that F would not count in the calculation. They'll just go straight to this person has retaken the course and now it's an A. So before you even start doing anything, if you're considering graduate school, especially in the United States, West evaluation is like the first huge step you need to do so that schools can evaluate you on equal footing with students who probably study biology or something, and they have like a clear CGPA. So if you present your medical degree and they're considering someone with maybe a 4.6 out of 5 CGPA, it's kind of hard to compare, and schools want to be fair in their evaluation. So that's how I always recommend people do West evaluation so that at least you can know that you would be considered on equal footing with other people who are applying. So next is research or clinical experience, depending on where you want to be in. If you're considering public health, you should have a lot of opportunities or a lot of experience. It could be volunteer, it could be like 2 weeks outreach, it could be something. But it's not enough to say, I want to study public health. Let your CV do the talking. Let people see what you've done in relation to, because there are so many people with, huge number of years of experience. So you don't want to sell yourself short. And this is why if you are still in medical school right now, or you're just graduating, this is the time for you to start thinking about what exactly do I want to study for my graduate school education, so that you can know that, okay, if I am doing public health stuff, I need to go for outreaches and do a lot of this volunteer stuff. If I want to do something very clinical, I need to get like an internship in a lab or volunteer for a lab to get that required experience. If I'm interested in bioinformatics, I need to start learning coding. I need to start learning Python. I need to start doing all of these things. So the earlier you know what area you are interested in, the better it is for you, so that you'll be able to build your resume to reflect that. And like the first speaker said, for me too, I cannot even count the number of resumes I have, depending on what I'm applying to. And I've learned the skill of building my resume for something. For now, I'm in my 4th year. I'll be graduating very soon. I'll be finishing my PhD. The traditional job people would expect is, finish as a chemistry graduate, you're working in a lab. I'm actually considering alternative career path. And I've been doing my intensive research, knowing what are the skills and what are the certifications I need to qualify for this particular field. And I am literally building my resume from scratch to meet that requirement. So my resume that I would use to apply for, maybe I'm submitting a paper or I'm going for a conference, is different from that resume I would be applying for this new career I'm considering. And it is actually a skill that takes time. So this new career I'm considering now, we are talking about 6 months to 1 year. I am still building stuff so that when they are comparing my profile with people who probably studied the exact course in university or they did that in the PhD, it would be like an equal footing. But the mistake people make is they say, I'm applying for public health experience, and nothing on the resume actually shows that you have even done anything related to public health before. So it would be very difficult for you not to toss out your resume when there are people who have listed or have worked in this outreach, I've done this, I've done that. So learn the hack. It is not a disadvantage if at the moment now you're interested in public health at this very moment, but there's nothing on your resume that says that. That is not the problem. You know that you have a deficiency, and the next thing is for you to work towards that. The next thing for you is start building something. So because now it's like there's so much information online, there's so many online courses, everybody is confused. One day people are learning Python, the next day they are doing public health, the next day they are doing right. Like it's just like there's just so much information out there, and if you do not have the right information and guidance, you just see that you're doing a bit of everything without having a path. Yes, sometimes you need to do a bit of everything to know which one you would like to specify in, but don't do jack of all trades when we're talking about you're applying to research or that. if you are not sure if you're interested in bioinformatics, take a simple class in Python. Do you enjoy it, or you think, oh, this is not something I like? Then you move to the next thing. So sometimes you need to do the trial and error to eventually know what you would be interested in. And once you know, you need to double down on that. This is not the time where you start moving up and down again. Once you're sure, or for instance, I'm interested in biomedical research, this is where you need to start showing that, okay, you need to start looking for internships in clinics. You need to start looking for, it could also be like medical laboratory labs. Some of them will probably say, okay, we'll train you for so amount of money. If you know that that is your field and that is what you're interested in, and you see a very good lab where they have a lot of samples and so many people come in and you learn a lot, you can pay to learn these skills as long as you're sure that, okay, this is what I want to do and I want to build my profile. So if you do not have everything you need at the moment, it is not a problem. But you should know that you need to build in like whatever you're interested in. So if you want to do biomedical science, for instance, just saying that I am a medical doctor and I've done this and I've done that would not count. You need to actually say, I have this research experience, research skills, I've worked in this lab, I've had to handle the samples, I've used some of this instrumentation. And one thing I always tell people is your medical degree is very, very valuable, very, very valuable, because even if you are working in the lab, you bring a very fresh perspective. If you're, for instance, if they're talking about clinical trials or they're talking about how a particular drug or something you're developing would be useful in humans, you have that clinical perspective to contribute. From a side, somebody who only does like bench lab work would not be able. So your medical degree is very relevant, but do not just sit down and say, okay, I have MBBS and that's it. You need to show whatever area you're interested in. You need to make sure that whatever you're building actually reflects that expertise. Yes, you have an MBBS, that is brilliant, that is awesome, but you need to build whatever skill you want to show that, oh, I am interested in this. Next is graduate record examination. The GMAT is not applicable for medical students. For graduate record examination, I always tell people there's a lot of conversation now because of COVID. So many schools are scrapping it. So many schools will say you can submit that you do not need to have it. But I always tell people, if you can, write it. And it's because the way I like to do my things, I don't like to waste time on things. And to be honest, I don't like to do things twice. So a brief story, when I finished, I wrote my final exam in Obafemi Awolowo University. I think that was February 2018. That was when I wrote my final exam. And from then till September, October, I prepared for this exam called the GRE, prepared for the other one, the English Proficiency exam. I'll be talking about that in a while. And I had my convocation in December 2018. And by January 2019, I was here. And people always say, oh, yeah, wow, that's awesome. It was very intentional. I didn't want to serve because I know service, I don't know. For me, that's not like my career path. I don't want to build my career in Nigeria. Why should I waste 1 year serving? I didn't want to serve. I also did not want to work because what happens is people finish, they start working and they say, oh, this graduate school thing is not important anymore because they're earning maybe 100K, 150K. That money eventually, with the inflation and everything that is happening now, it's very, very irrelevant. Not to even talk about the fact that career prospects in Nigeria and everything is just crazy right now. So everything was intentional on my path. And I always tell people during the time I was writing and preparing for these exams, even if someone had told me, well, these exams are not important, you did not have to write it. I graduated as the best graduating student. If I did not write this exam, of course, I would still get admitted. But writing this exam just gave me this, I have done everything I am supposed to do, and then I'll wait for the best. But people sometimes want to play gamble. They'll say, okay, since they're not requiring, I'm not going to write. There's a lot of competition happening. And what I've seen, especially in biomedical sciences, is that so many people have worked in the lab for years. Like there's a lot of experience coming in now that even if you have a good CGPA, if your research experience is not vast, it's very difficult to compete. But what I always tell people is GRE is like an automatic admission. Like if you write the GRE and you have a good score, it's more, you can sit down and relax in your house and know that at least one school will give you full tuition and give you full scholarship and pay you a salary till you finish your program. So yes, especially for biomedical science, so many schools are not requiring it anymore. But the truth is, if you submit it, they would use it in their in your application review. So for instance, I've had people, some of my students last year that got like $80,000 funding per year. the girl, she had first class in a bachelor's, had first class in a master's degree, and she still wrote the GRE. So the school she got admitted is top 10 in the United States. And that's what the GRE does. Even though, yes, your CGPA is good and all of that, you have the experience, it's just an additional, very, very relevant boost to your profile, where people take a single look and say, okay, this person had a good score on the GRE, definitely she's a smart person or is a smart person. So yes, there'll be a lot of conversation about should I write, should I not? I always tell people, if you can, just write it and know that you've dotted all your I's and you've crossed all your T's. Then the next is test of English as a foreign language. There are also other English proficiency tests like IELTS, Duolingo. This is just to say, oh yeah, even though in Nigeria, we've been speaking English since birth, they still want to have this idea of, especially if you would be teaching students, that you can actually communicate in English. And people always ask, like, either TOEFL or IELTS. Duolingo, not all schools accept Duolingo. Duolingo is like the last resort. But for TOEFL or IELTS, schools don't actually mind which one you write. But many people prefer to write IELTS. I've realized that it seems IELTS is probably easier for people to pass. Both exams are testing the same thing: speaking, reading, writing, and listening. Reading, you have like a bunch of things they will ask you to read. They will ask you a question, but this is not like a traditional comprehension you did in primary school or something. You still need to study for these exams. But if you're serious with it, people do intensive studying for 2 weeks. People do intensive studying for 4 weeks, and they go have a blast. And in the two universities that admitted me in, the second one did not give me funding because they said my speaking score was probably 22 out of 30. And they said, yeah, their cutoff for teaching assistantship was 24 out of 30. So people just think it's an English exam. It actually really sometimes matters. That's what they use to evaluate who would get funding or not. Because if your speaking score is maybe 20 over 30 and someone is getting 28, they will just say, like, since this person has better skills communicating in the English language, and that's the person they would award like the teaching assistantship to, because these are very competitive too. It's not everybody will get admitted or would automatically be considered for assistantship, because so many people from all over the world, people think like they are competing only people from Nigeria or people in Africa. You're competing with people from all over the world: India, China, Italy. Everybody wants to come to America. So this is a time where you just need to, make sure you're doing the best for your application. So either there are also schools who waive these exams. There are schools who waive these exams. They can say that if you studied in a university where English was the primary language of instruction, you don't have to write. And I always tell people, if you cannot afford to write the exam, or you do not want to write, it is fine. But sometimes the school that will give you admission, that I know for certain, depending on your profile, I do a lot of that for every single of my mentees. We do a profile evaluation, and the kind of schools that everybody is applying to is dependent on what they have. Some of these schools that will give you full funding and will pay your tuition are the ones that would request to stop. So I always tell people, don't, because of like a so amount of exam, or because you're too lazy to prepare, to miss out on tens of thousands of dollars of funding. So, and people always sometimes confuse the GRE, which is like this graduate record examination, with TOEFL or other English proficiency tests. They are very different, and what they are used for is entirely different. I would say GRE is like JAM. You're talking about math, like this is technical. In JAM, everybody, depending on their courses, you have that. So GRE is more technical. You have the quantitative section, you have the verbal section, you have the analytical writing section. So this is very technical. You need to study for the exams. It's not easy, but there are very detailed videos and very detailed resources we provide in the mentorship program that if you're serious with it, without even paying for maybe an external tutor or something, you can succeed. But TOEFL or IELTS, these are purely English exams, testing your ability to communicate in the English language. So these are entirely different. And people always ask, can TOEFL replace GRE? Can IELTS replace GRE? No, GRE is on its own. TOEFL or IELTS, these can replace each other. Whichever you write, it doesn't matter. But you cannot replace GRE with TOEFL or IELTS. So those are the major differences. And the unofficial or official school transcript. Unofficial transcript is any transcript that your school is not sending directly to the university. So unofficial could be a screenshot of your grade on your school portal. It could be what your sometimes schools also give like what they call the student copy of your transcript. If a school is asking for official school transcript, you need to be honest with yourself. This official school transcript, for every school your university sends it to, you're paying for it. Whereas an unofficial, once you have the copy in your hand, you can send to any number of schools, you can upload to any number of schools you want. But for official, it's like your school is directly sending that to each school. So if you know that it is expensive to do that, I always tell people you don't have to apply to schools that are requesting official, because it's like, I'm not sure you would admit me. Why do I need to spend a lot of money trying to send my official school transcript when I have the unofficial? So I think maybe 70, 80, 85% of schools would require you to submit unofficial. And when they've admitted you and you've accepted the admission, that's when they ask for the official school transcript. And in your case, we talked about WES evaluation. WES evaluation, you are not the one uploading your transcript to WES yourself. WES will reach out to your university. They have different ways you can do that. Once you start the process, you see your options, but they are getting your original transcript from the university, not the one you upload. But you still need the one you've uploaded, because even though you're doing a WES evaluation of your degree, schools still want to see whatever you have from university. The ones that have just pass or fail or just CCC or whatever, they still want to see that, as well as the evaluated copy. Some universities, very, very few, would say that, oh, you don't need to do an external evaluation. We will do that internally ourselves. Those are very, very few universities. The most common is do WES evaluation, and usually you can apply to any school you want. Then statement of purpose or personal statement. Statement of purpose is referred to as SOP. This is the most dreaded essay. People don't want to write. They're like, it's too difficult and all of that. This is an essay that just brings everything you had together. You're talking about what even motivated you to study medicine, what you're doing now, the volunteer experiences you've had, the research experiences you've had, why you want to study this course, why the university is a good deal. So yes, I know it's not like writing is not easy for everybody, but in the mentorship program, we provide a very, very detailed template that you can use. And then we have a lot of reviewers who go deeply and review, and most especially redraft your essays for you. And the writing sample, some universities would say that they want to see any publication you've written. Also, like, it's just unfortunate that in most medical schools, there's no like that research. People are not built for a life of research, because otherwise, like, before you graduate, you should have at least maybe a publication in like maybe a journal, or even, it could be like even a health publication you write for your magazine, just something to show that as somebody who is about to get a medical degree, or someone who has a medical degree, you have also the skills of communicating either to the general public or also communicating to fellow scientists. So sometimes schools ask for that. And then the first presenter talked about academic CV or resume. I always tell people, yes, you have to keep it relevant. We also provide a very detailed template in the mentorship program where you would put like your most important and your most relevant information on your resume. Then the last is letters of recommendation. Number one, letters of recommendation. Do not ask letters of recommendation from people who hate you. Some people don't want you to succeed in life, and it's just the truth. And you know this, probably you know the professors, you know the lecturers in your school who don't like you. Don't ask letters of recommendation from them. I was very picky when selecting my letters of the people who would write my letters of recommendation. I made sure that these are people who have vouched for me. I made sure that these are people who believe in my potentials. I made sure these are people who would do whatever they can to make sure I succeed. So I was sure. Some of them even sent me whatever they wrote and asked me to view it. I did okay. That was the kind of relationship I had with those who wrote my letters of recommendation. I've got tens of thousands of scholarship from all over the world from just having good letters of recommendation from people. So it is very important to build like a very good relationship. You don't have to, not all lecturers are approachable. Not all lecturers really want to have a good relationship with students. But it's very important to have people who can vouch for you. And this is where having leadership positions in schools also help. If you are maybe the class rep or something, many lecturers know you, whether you're scheduling exams or you're there, you're that. So that makes you open to so many lecturers. So make sure that whoever would write you a letter of recommendation, these are people who actually care about you. I know that they would not be writing nonsense, because there are people who are literally devilish. Because if you cannot write something good for a student, you could just say, you know, I don't know you enough to write something good, or I don't think like you have like satisfactory attributes. But some of them will write nonsense and say, oh, I'm not sure this person is okay for graduate school, like they are lazy and all of that. You don't want that. People have gotten into graduate school with the worst CGPA because they have 3 lecturers saying that I can vouch for this person. Yes, the CGPA might not be telling all of the stories, but this is actually a very brilliant candidate, and the person will get admitted, full funding, full tuition paid, everything. And there are people who have exceptional for 4 first class and everything. If all the lecturers they are assigned, or maybe 2 out of 3 are saying that this person is actually an irresponsible person and the person would not be a good addition to your department, trust me, they will just toss out that. So good letters of recommendation will do you a lot of good. And this is not like something generic or her name is Aminat, she's good, she's nice, she's this. No, these are well-crafted essays, well-crafted letters that show that you have a personal relationship with this person and they can vouch for you on an academic and career level. So you can use maybe your personal mentor, but usually I recommend people, at least 2 of these lecturers should probably be from your department, at the worst in your school. And maybe you can have one, and maybe if you've worked somewhere before, you know your boss likes. If your boss doesn't like you and use your boss as a letter of recommendation, it will cause a lot of problems. So you need to make sure that these are people that if they wake you up anytime, any day, you are sure they would vouch for you. So it is very recommended that these are people you've worked with. If you've maybe done a little bit of research in somebody's lab, or you had a very good relationship with the lecturer, maybe a group project you were up and doing, and the lecturer has said so many times that you're hardworking and all of that. Those are the people you want to reach out to. And the way letters of recommendation works in the United States is it's not as if they will just print something and then you go upload it. You input the emails of these lecturers during your application, and then the school will send them a personal email for them to upload that. And another thing is you can always ask this in the mentorship program to provide like very many samples of letters of recommendation, and we recommend people to actually craft those letters themselves. First, ask the person you want to make your referee, like, is it okay for me to just craft something for you, and then you can edit to your satisfaction? Because sometimes they don't know what to write, not because they don't want to write something good for you, but sometimes they don't know. So sometimes you just ask them, like, is it okay so if you craft that in the mentorship program, we edit, and then you can send to the lecturers. They can make like tweaks, whatever, but at least they have all the information needed for them to, submit something worthy for you. So frequently asked questions. Does the CPA I have after my transcript evaluation affect my chances of getting admitted? Yes and no. Yes, if for instance, I've had somebody who eventually after his transcript evaluation, his CGPA was like 3.8 out of 4, is had like several scholarships from like the various schools because the CGPA is just very, very high. So if your CGPA maybe is not that high, which is why it is advantageous, get an internship if you're going for a clinical experience, or even a lecturer in your department, just find a way to just work for them in their lab, learn instrumentation, so they can write that on your resume. And then if you also want to do your best, I would always recommend write this GRE exam. If you write GRE and you have a good score, in fact, you can just submit your application and just be flangering, because you know that at the very worst, you have a school would admit you. How long does the scholarship processing take? It depends on how long you want it to take. For me, it probably took 8 to 9 months. For some people, they will say, I've been applying for 3 years, 4 years. I'm like, this thing is not that hard. But people will write one essay today, don't submit, and wait till 18 months after to do the second part. If you are doing it like that, it will take a lot of time. But usually, the time where scholarships are done is August of every year. That's the hottest time. This year alone, like many of my mentors are already ready before the before application will start in August. They have everything they need to submit a successful application already at this time. So it's like it happens every August. That's the hot time. Some schools admit for January, but intake is very low in January. Many schools don't even offer admission at all. So for instance, if you're starting your application in August this year, by January or February, schools will start sending emails and getting back to you. By this time, so many of my mentors have already gotten their visas already. So we are in June now, they've gotten their visas, they'll be traveling maybe August or July. So when you will travel is August. When the application cycle will run, August next year. When the application cycle will run is August the preceding year to December the preceding year. Most schools stop accepting applications for the next year, August, from December the preceding year. And then from maybe January to March, that's when people will start receiving emails of their scholarship. So what does the scholarship cover? Your tuition, about $10,000 per semester, depending on the school. It could be as high as $60K. It could be as high as $40K. And get stipend or salary, about $20,000 to $40,000. And the reason why this is such a wide range is in America, you get paid according to where you live. So for instance, and it also happens in Nigeria too, if you get a $150,000 job, not $150,000. If you get a maybe 150,000 naira per month job in Lagos, that same job can pay you maybe 80,000 naira in Nigeria, because in Ibadan, because they will feel that the standard of living in Lagos is high. So usually all the money that you think is high in Lagos will probably be spent on transportation and housing. So depending on where you live, they've done it is very cost effective, where eventually after removing like all these housing expenses and all of this, everybody is eventually on the same level. So sometimes people say $40,000 and they're jumping up, where someone may be earning $20,000 per year. It could be that housing there is probably $500 for a 2-bedroom, and the person earning $40,000, housing there is probably $2,500 for a 1-bedroom. So these are the reasons why you see like a very high disparity, or like very wide range when we talk about this type of salary. Health insurance school too. So many scholarships cover health insurance. My school does not cover, but with your salary, it's not really a huge problem. But so it's nice if the school is also providing you health insurance. That means your stipend is majorly just for your housing, your food, and then whatever spend, very, very little cost that the university charges every semester. Other miscellaneous fees too, depending on the university, sometimes the scholarship cover. How competitive are graduate school applications for medical doctors? The truth is, you have a huge advantage. You know, when we're talking about biomedical experience or public health, you have a very unique perspective that is respected all over. Like, people do respect your expertise, but like I've said before, just make sure that you presented that within your time, a medical doctor, and just rest like that. Though targeting public health, draft a resume accordingly, build your experience accordingly. If you're going towards informatics and coding, build your resume accordingly. If you're going towards biological sciences, build your resume accordingly, so that you can be as competitive as every other person applying. What makes an excellent scholarship essay or statement of purpose? I would say always tell your story. Sometimes it takes you a time when many of you might not remember now why you even decided to study medicine, but some people, it could be like loss of, very close family members. Some people, it could be like, something that happened when they were young or something. These are very inspiring stories that tell people that, give people that are reviewing your essays an ability to like give you a chance. For instance, there are people who are from very poverty backgrounds. And then when people see that, and when you talk about the fact that you've been able to pass through so many different things to eventually finish your medical degree, and now you want to do this, do that, it shows people that even though like your circumstances might not be the best, you were able to make use of the best opportunity you have. So it's a very good advantage to tell your story in such a way that people who do not even know you, or who have never seen you before, will be able to fight for you and be like, oh yeah, I believe this person deserves a chance. Career path after graduate school. The truth is, most medical students, if African countries, let me just talk about Nigeria. If the situation in Nigeria were good, usually many medical students don't want to do masters or PhD after. They just want to finish and start practicing. So it's not that when you come in for graduate school, you can no longer practice. No, that's not it. So the main part is to get you into the United States or to get you into Canada. Once you land, you know that you want to practice, you know that you still want to have like a field and, be like a regular medical doctor. So that's when we start talking about you writing the USMLE exams, the medical license examination, you taking your residency. It is a long path for you to actually become a medical doctor. But once you're in the country, everything is so much easier. You have better resources, you have better advantages, your profile is better, and it's so much easier. This educational path is so much faster. People are still in Nigeria 3 years, 4 years, saying they want to come here and become medical doctors because it is very money intensive. You need a lot of resources. Sometimes you even study, you don't even have the time because you're working and very long hours. But if you're in the United States or you're in Canada already, you have more resources. Whatever examination fee you're paying in dollars, and you are earning in dollars. So it is easier for you to finish, even before you finish your graduate school program. Maybe it's a 2-year master's, you can easily just apply for your exam and start like building your path to you becoming a medical doctor if that's what you want. And another thing I should say is, in my company, most of my mentees, they get PhDs directly, because in America, for instance, MD PhDs are very rare degrees and they are very valuable. Like in America, if you want to get an MD and PhD, you're spending nothing less than 7 years in medical school. So maybe you start medical school in the first 2 years, and then as you're running your medical school, you're also running your PhD, you're doing extensive research. And at the end of the day, you get an MD PhD. MD PhDs at the very least, like even if the person is working in like the worst hospital ever, that is still their salary is still like more than $200,000 a year, like at the worst, because they get money from working in the hospital. And if you're a medical doctor in the hospital, yeah, at the worst, like everything is like it's even worse. We are still talking about $200,000, and then you're working as a researcher, you get a separate salary for that. So it's like there's just huge money available. Like the return on investment and all of this is really high. So, and the reason why we recommend direct PhD admission is because funding is almost automatic for direct PhDs. Is like, especially for biomedical science, for all of this bioinformatics and all of these courses, once it's a PhD, funding is available. For masters, sometimes they don't give. Usually they don't give for masters because they always want somebody who would invest a lot of years, you know. So if you're somebody who has been passionate about research and you want to give back to your community through public health, or you want to do a lot of clinical research, I always recommend people to apply for a direct PhD. And people are like, why am I skipping a master's? The truth is, I also did not get a master's. I completed my BSc and I came here straight for a PhD. And the truth is, during your PhD program, whatever courses you'll be taking are master's level classes. So if you're a master's student or PhD student, everybody's taking the same classes. So there's no point saying we need you to have a master's degree before you start your PhD. So we call that the BSc to PhD direct track. So you can do that where you're not applying for a master's degree, but you're applying for a PhD directly because funding is just more abundant. Then why should you give this your best shot? I always tell people, I'm online every time motivating people, doing a lot of this kind of lectures, telling people, but there's no better drive than you being internally driven. You know, you should know why you want to leave the country. You should know why this means a lot to you. Once you start having these doubts that, I earn a lot, I earn 200,000 naira per month, this is fine, I love my future, I don't have to do this. If that is what you want, that is fine. But if you're trying to move out of the country, if you're trying to do something better for yourself, you need to have this all or nothing mentality. That is what will make you to give your absolute best to whatever you're doing. Because I always tell people, do not freestyle your applications. This is not something you just do when you feel like it. You have to be very deliberate. You being deliberate will determine how much energy you put into all of these things so that you can give it your best shot. Do you have to do this all alone? You don't have to. I run a mentorship program where all the resources and templates you need to do to move from point A to point Z would be given to you. And like I said before, this is not a pay and everything is done for you system. It is a mentorship program. You are given the skills and everything, every resources you need to make sure you complete these applications yourself. Because during your application, you would be meeting with professors, talking to them. I talked about research assistantships earlier. Professors will interview you, want to know why you're interested in their lab. If you have not done it yourself, it will be very difficult for you to explain why you want to do this, why you want to do that. So it is a mentorship program. The name of my company is the Graduate School Hub. We provide bespoke graduate school mentorship, and bespoke means like it is personalized. So it's not like you're dumped in one WhatsApp group and everybody is receiving the same information. So it is a personalized mentorship program. Whatever you need, depending on your profile, is delivered to you, and that is curated just for you and not just like general information for anybody. You can also ask any questions, whatever, anytime, any day. You need to complete your application. If you want to reach out to me, my LinkedIn name is Rahima Trafium. My email is rahimat@gmail.com. You can just message me depending on your profile. We'll talk about what you need to do to get your application. That will be the end of my presentation today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for that brilliant presentation, Remark. I think throughout this presentation, I had my pen and paper and I was noting down almost everything that you mentioned, even though we'll be expecting the slides at the end of this. Everything that you've said here has been literally gold for any medical student that wants to further their education right after medical school, going into graduate school programs or looking for scholarships to go on further in America and even in other countries of the world. Thank you so much for everything that you've said, all the knowledge and information that you shared with everyone that is present here. I'm sure everyone here as well is really grateful for everything that you have shared and everything that you have taught us. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please, you can send them to the chat box. You can send the messages to the chat box and then I'll read out the questions for the speaker if anyone has any questions to ask. Okay, there's a person here that is asking for your email address, Rahimat. If please you can share your email address with us and then information on your company, that is the Graduate Hub, so we can follow up online and we can follow the activities.
Remark, okay.
Okay, her email address is currently in the chat box, and then also her LinkedIn name. I think I'll be sending a link to her LinkedIn profile to the chat box as well, so the participants can follow up on LinkedIn.
4391466.
Hello.
Okay, yes, we can hear you. Who is that?
Yeah, all right. So sorry, I have a question. I have questions, please.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So to the facilitator, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this session. In fact, really, I've learned a lot, like a whole lot. Thank you so much. And for the organizers too, you guys are amazing doing the work. Thank you so much. Okay, so my question would be, my first question is, okay, now I understand that we are all undergraduate. I mean, almost everybody here, we're all undergraduate, and it's something good that we start preparing, like, I mean, preparing for the journey ahead. And I want to know, because I understand all of these things take, like, even though you have to put in so much energy, you still need to put in your financial resources and all that, like your financial and all of that. So now I understand that paying for GRE, I think GRE is around 150 and K, so I don't know. And then TOEFL to also cost money, and then transcript, then paying for like paying for application fees and like so many things like that. I mean, so how much do you think be like from your experiences, maybe how much you spent totally on all of the exams you wrote and even the application, how much do you think would be like something that we can now know that we have the estimates of preparing or budgeting to know when it's now like our turn to like start applying for all of these things. So that's my first question. Then the second question would be, as regard some schools require you to send unofficial and unofficial transcripts. Now, some schools require you to send official transcript even without giving you admission. Like they've not given you admission, but expect you send official transcript. And official transcripts are kind of sorry, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Right. So official transcripts are not really easy because they have to send it from your school, and you know it's not something that is kind of easy to process on like your unofficial. What can you do in that sense? Is it possible to like waive, like maybe like the GRE, the waiver and all of that, like to just, I don't know if schools do that. So I just want to ask based on some schools that recommend you to send your official transcripts even when you're applying, not after you've been given admission. So that's
Okay.
the second question. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So the first question is about how much you need. The good news is, if the most important thing was, I would say, like, you really deters people from applying is what we call application fees. So for each school, let me say $40 to $70 average. But there are so many, I have had many of my mentees who got like 10 application fee waivers. Many schools we waive. You just need to message them and say, I'm poor, I don't have money, help me, help my life. Like, usually just tell them that your financial situation is not good, or you can, mention, just like how much you make in a month and the fact that you have so many people depending on you and all of that. And they would say, when you start your application, messages would waive it for you. Like this kind of sessions now, schools also organize this type of sessions where they tell you that, come to this session. If you attend, we'll waive the application fees for you. I've had people apply to 40-something schools and eventually they are paying for maybe 5, like 35 schools we waive for them. But if you do not have access to the right information, you just feel that you have to pay for everything and you keep disturbing yourself about the money. The most important, let me say the biggest fee here would be if you want to write the GRE or if you want to write TOEFL. When I was applying, GRE was about probably 50K or 45K. Now, I don't know what happened to like the whole registration system. Everybody has like their own prices they fix for the exam. So on the official website, I think it's about, I'm not sure like the exact dollar price, but depending on, I don't know how people do like their Naira conversion. Sometimes people register GRE for 50,000 Naira, 60,000 Naira, depending on that. So I would say that those GRE, money for TOEFL, for application fees, many schools will waive for you. And this is also a game of numbers. If you reach out to 15 schools and 5 say they are waiving, that's good news. You leave the remaining 10. Since you cannot afford to pay it, you apply for the 5. And when it comes to the official transcript, like I said before, there are like 2,000, 3,000 universities in the US. If a university is asking for official transcripts, I know that, number one, it's not feasible for you. It's expensive. Don't apply. It's that simple. Don't apply. Go for schools that would match what you want. So because there's like a lot of schools in America, we have like a lot of advantages to say, I'm filtering this one out. Even there are schools who, like I said, there are schools who even waive TOEFL or IELTS. And if you know that you can only afford GRE TOEFL, you can decide to only apply it. For instance, you know that, okay, GRE would strengthen your application, so that would be like a good one to write. You know, English exam is just for English exam, and there are schools that we waive. Out of like maybe 300 schools or 200 or 100, or no matter the number of schools you are considering, you can filter out the ones requiring you for TOEFL or IELTS. So this is where everybody needs to consider their needs. But if you write GRE, you write TOEFL, is like you have everything you need and you can apply to any school you want. So just to recap the summary, for the application fees, many schools will waive that for you, your application fees. Many schools will waive that. And for the GRE or TOEFL, depending on where you're registering and who you're registering with, you can search Google for like GRE registration centers around you. You can find people who would register like in a less, maybe dollar value, depending on their conversion and all of that. And about official transcripts, if a school is asking for official transcripts before they give you admission, just leave them and go apply to another school. Then looking through the charts, please, is the WES evaluation paid for? Yes, the WES evaluation is not free. I think it's about $200 or something. It's a lot of money, but honestly, it's what it will do for you is really important. I've had people who just apply with their medical degree without that. It's a two-way thing. If it's a school that have like their whole internal evaluation service, they can still find a way to convert that for you. But for most schools, I think that it will just be important for you. But like I said, everybody's situation is different. Sometimes it just takes a simple email to schools and say, I have a medical degree and this is my transcript. Can I still apply with what I have? Some schools will say, oh yeah, you can apply. We'll do the evaluation ourselves. So yeah, $200. If you do the WES evaluation, you can apply to any school and ensure that they can see the equivalent of all your hard work in like a CGPA, which really helps. But if you can, I would really recommend WES evaluation. So it is not free, but there is a free service, a free WES calculator where you can see an approximate value that your WES evaluation will come to. And that's a very good resource before the end of the, that's a very good resource, but because many of you would have just have like pass fail, it might be difficult to actually see like what that exact score you've had in the exam time. Someone said, how do I get internships with laboratories in Nigeria? I don't know how that works. Nigeria is an, everything in Nigeria is an extreme sport, you know. If it's in the US now, but I believe that Google searching would really help. And also just being online and just searching for maybe biology company in your place. You can look for maybe medical laboratory services in your area. So sometimes this process is not easy, but you also need a lot of confidence. Sometimes it's just about you dressing good and walking up to a laboratory and talking to them like they are used to people walking up to them for CWES. They're used to people walking up to them for IT or something like that. So it wouldn't be that strange. Can you do residency after your PhD program? Yeah, sure. You can do your residency after your PhD program. There's nobody stopping you to, but your residency in Nigeria would not qualify. You need to do your USMLE exams and then match for a residency program in the United States. So if you finish your PhD, yes, you can do that. I think we've overrun our time here. I would let the facilitators take over now. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. My LinkedIn and the Twitter for my company is all in the chat box. My email is also there. If you're not sure, you can reach out to the facilitators after the conversation is over.
All right, thank you very much for that, Rahimat. Once again, my name is Sadiq Santambata. I am the head of projects for FAMSA SCOMA, and I would like to thank everyone that also took the time out to join us today for this program, and everyone that came to listen and learn. We first went through the CV writing process before we moved into the graduate school opportunities. First, we had Progress come up and he explained to us how to prepare your CV in the best way possible for opportunities, both while still in school and after school. And then Rahimat came and put the final rose on top of the entire cake. So now she has given us all the information that we need with regards to graduate school opportunities and graduate school applications. Like she said, her information is in the chat box. She shared her email, her Twitter, and her LinkedIn profiles. So please make sure you follow, make sure you save the information, and you can check on the activities of her company so you can follow up. And if you want to pursue some of these graduate school opportunities, I'm sure you'll see some of these opportunities posted on either her LinkedIn or on the Twitter page. Once again, thank you very much, Rahimat, for joining us, and thank you very much for Progress for the CV session. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming for this session and staying from the start to the end. You can also join our Telegram page, our official Telegram page, FAMSA SCOMA. It has currently been sent to the chat box. Most of the information that is being shared is there in our Telegram page. So please make sure you follow the link to our Telegram page and you follow the notifications from Telegram page. We also have interesting cases that we discuss on Wednesdays and on Thursdays, clinical, preclinical, as well as ethical medical cases. So please make sure you tap the link and make sure you join our Telegram group as well. There will be a lot of very important information that you would be glad you're not going to miss once you join the Telegram discussions. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We're very grateful for taking out the time. Have a nice evening.